ITR 7. So first the provisos understanding is very, very important. So then alone will be able to apply the correct provisions of the law. As I have already told you, without registration, when the Act prescribes a registration, if no registration is obtained but still some activity is done, then it becomes a taxable activity. Though it is non-profit motive, without registration, if some activity is taken up, then because the institution, the organization, AOP, has not obtained, though no profit motive is there, but such a activity will become taxable activity under the provisions of the Income Tax Act. So we have broadly seen the non-profit organizations from taxable to non-taxable, even exempted institutions, how the registration stage, what we have to take, we have seen. Now I will try to explain the right from registration stage, how many recent amendments have come, you have to see. For example, though you have obtained 10 years back for a registration, when it can be cancelled, withdrawn by the same commissioner who has given you. So the registration cancellation provisions recently have come into the statute book. Even if registration cancellation they have not done during the year, if the institution has taken up any other activity which is not in the objects class, then within 30 days for a fresh registration it is not applying, it is deemed to have lost its registration. So from 1819 assessment year, this new clause has come. So already you are having for a registration, but in the middle of this previous year 1718, an activity which is not in accordance with the objective, some new activity you have taken up. When new activity is taken up, or when you amend your objectives to take up an activity, immediately for fresh registration from the earlier, whatever the changes you want to propose in the objects clause or in the bylaws, you must take the prior permission was there. Now prior permission is also there for your administration. You want to change the bylaws, you have to take prior permission. But as far as the objects are concerned, if you are taking up a new objective or an activity, new activity which is not permitted in the objectives, within 30 days unless you apply for fresh registration, and as a consequence of that fresh registration, unless you obtain a fresh registration, you are already given registration, deemed to have lost. This is the important change. There are 6 important amendments which are affecting either 1718 assessment year or 1819 assessment year. As far as this public charter institutions are concerned, these amendments we will see with a 5 minutes break, please. This is NPOs, especially for the assessment year 1819, there are substantial changes both in the law and in the procedures. Unlike the earlier years, the written form is modified to bring into the provisions of the law more explicitly. So, how best to comply the law and then to avail the given exemption, we have to see. So, in understanding this, while applying for registration itself, many of our professional colleagues are facing difficulties. As I said, at present, the application itself shall be filed online. There is no necessity for physical filing and physical appearance provided we comply the law. There are 10 important provisions. There should be there as bylaws conditions. For example, a trust must be irrevocable to claim this public charitable or public religious nature. For example, the activities must be restricted to India, because the Indian Income Tax Act is giving the exemption If they carry on their activities outside India, it's not like from outside India you may get the money. In ITR 7 there is a particular column. Are you having FCRA? How much funds you receive from abroad? For which purpose? From whom? In which bank? All these things are there in ITR 7. Receiving. But one column. Have you spent any money in outside India? Total exemption gone. So you should not apply outside India. They want it in your registered bylaws as a column, as a condition that yes, the activity shall be within India only. A uniform financial year, a yearly audit, an investment or a deposit or investments must be always as per section 11.5. They want you to comply these things and then claim the exemption under section 11. So like this, there are, in case of winding up, because of this exemption, if the assets are accumulated and you are going to transfer these assets at the time of winding up, because you cannot distribute the surplus during its continuance or at the time of winding up, the assets have to be, surplus assets over the liabilities have to be transferred to some other institution having the similar objectives. Such provision should be there in the bylaws. So like this, these clauses, unless you draft in the original itself or before applying already registered institutional clauses, unless you modify by merely filing the application at the time of scrutiny by the department, if these clauses are not there, you may not have sufficient time to modify, thereby the exemption is lost. Actually, though unconditional registration is given, for example, our street corner schools less than 1 crore, if they are wholly for education, even without any registration, they can enjoy 100% income exemption under 1023C small 3 AD. But in a particular year, financial year, when they are about to cross 1 crore, before the end of the financial year, unless they apply for registration, and after the close of the year, if you apply, the 12AA section specifically says the registration will be granted from the day of application, but section 11 exemption you are going to get from the first day of the financial year in which you have applied. Application may be in one financial year, January 2018. Registration within 6 months, by June 18 you may get the registration. But if the application date is falling in the financial year, once the registration is approved, from the first day of the financial year in which you have applied, you will get the exemption. So, in a particular year where without registration exemption is going to become a with registration exemption that is crossing 1 crore, care must be taken that within that financial year, before the close of the financial year, registration application has to be applied with suitable clauses as I have just now enumerated. So then only you will get it. Similarly, as I have told you, whether you fall in the charitable or whether you fall in the religious, that application asks you, we have to decide. Merely the words in the bylaws say that, or merely the name says that Sri Venkateswara Educational Institution, Society. The name Venkateswara is religious doesn't mean that it is a religious institution. Your objects, the activity and the beneficiaries, these two things are important. If the activity is for educational purpose, education, and then the beneficiaries are public at large, then it is a public charitable one, not a religious one. The name is not going to indicate whether it is religious or charitable. The objects you have to see and who are the recipients of this benefits of this activity. That is the criteria. There can be a class of persons. There is an exception. In the case of women, in the case of children, in the case of SC/ST people, if the benefits are meant for a particular class of people, then also the Act itself has said it is not restricting as if the beneficiaries are identified. A class of persons only are identified, but not the prohibited people. So, other than this, if a particular, say for example, 6 school you want, and the admission is restricted to a particular Sikh community or some other subcaste or community, then it is not eligible for registration, and even if after obtaining the registration, if the activities are restricted to a particular community, then no longer it is handled. Whereas in the case of religious things, they can be there. Because in India, many subcaste, sub-religion, say, activities, they will be restricted. A particular caste will have a particular temple. Only that particular caste people will go to that particular temple, like that it is restricted. Even then, it is a public religious institution only. For religious activities, subject is not a bar. Only for charitable activities, if there is a benefit for particular identified sector, as per section 13(1)(b), it is a negative condition. They are not eligible for registration, they are not eligible for, though they obtain the registration, they are not eligible for exemption. So these precautions are to be taken, then alone so by applying what sort of precautions you have to take are there, and then especially anonymous donations in the case of charitable institutions are taxable. That means section 115 BBC, this section specifically says a religious institution can have a hundi, can have without name the receipts. So disclose their name doesn't mean that it is a black money. Maybe they don't want publicity, they want to do something good. So without name, if some receipts are being accounted for, it is permitted in the case of religious institution, but it is not permitted in the case of charitable institution. In the case of charitable institution, if such donations are there without any name, then such donations are taxable, subject to, again, in 115 BBC, there is a subclass which says if 5% of the gross donations are 1 lakh rupees, whichever is higher is again exempted. This particular class is giving a exemption. So in the ITR 7, anonymous donations taxable, anonymous donations not taxable, 2 columns are there. In the anonymous donations, in the case of charitable institution, what is taxable, what is not taxable is there. Please understand this. A break, please.